George Parrott, who earned the nickname Big Nose George, was a minor figure in the American Wild West during the late 1800s. He engaged in cattle rustling and highway robbery. His distinctive feature, a large nose, contributed to his moniker. Big Nose George and his gang had a successful run of robbing stagecoaches and freight wagons. During that era, monetary transactions were conducted in cash, and these coaches often carried significant amounts of paper money, especially on paydays. In 1878, Big Nose George's gang attempted to rob a Union Pacific train transporting employee payrolls. They targeted a desolate track section near the Medicine Bow River in Wyoming. By loosening a rail spike, they hoped to derail the train. However, a vigilant railroad worker discovered the tampered rail, swiftly repaired it, and alerted the authorities before the train's arrival. Fleeing to Rattlesnake Canyon at the base of Elk Mountain, Big Nose George and his accomplices were pursued by two law enforcement officers, Wyoming Deputy Sheriff Robert Whitfield and Union Pacific Detective Tip Vincent. Arriving at Rattlesnake Canyon, the officers encountered the remains of a recently extinguished campfire. As Whitfield examined the ashes' warmth, a shot from the bushes fatally struck him in the face. Vincent attempted to escape, but was also shot and killed. The Union Pacific Railroad promptly offered a $10,000 bounty on Big Nose George's head, later doubling it to $20,000. For the next 2 years, George and his gang evaded capture until he was apprehended in Miles City, Montana. He bragged about the Elk Mountain killings while inebriated at a bar, leading to his arrest. Subsequently, he was convicted and sentenced to hanging after a trial in Rawlins. Just 10 days before the scheduled execution in 1881, George Parrott made a bid for escape. Using a pocket knife, he managed to cut through the rivets on his heavy leg shackles, injuring jailer Robert Rankin in the process. Despite his injury, Rankin's wife, Rosa, intervened with a pistol and ordered Parrott back to his cell. The news of the escape attempt incited an angry mob, who stormed the jail, dragged out George Parrott, and hanged him from a telegraph pole. With no family to claim the body, Doctors Thomas Magee and John Eugene Osborne took possession to study his brain for clues to his criminal tendencies. They removed the top of Parrott's skull and examined the brain, finding no significant differences from a normal brain. Dr. Osborne's experiments took a peculiar turn. He crafted a death mask of Parrott's face and fashioned shoes and a medicine bag from his skin. The rest of the dismembered body was preserved in a whiskey barrel with salt solution for a year before being buried. Dr. Osborne transitioned into politics, becoming Wyoming's first Democratic governor and later an assistant secretary of state under President Wilson. He famously wore the skin shoes at his inaugural ball as governor. The skull cap ended up in the possession of his assistant, Lillian Heath, who later became Wyoming's first female doctor, using the skull cap as an ashtray and then a doorstop. Big Nose George's story remained obscure until 1950 when construction workers discovered a whiskey barrel with bones while digging for a new building. The remains matched George's description, and the skull cap held by Dr. Heath confirmed the identification. Decades later, DNA testing provided further verification. Today, the skin shoes, the bottom part of George's skull, and his death mask are on display at the Carbon County Museum in Rawlins, Wyoming. The skull cap is housed at the Union Pacific Museum in Omaha, Nebraska, while the skin-made medicine bag remains missing.